Hey, listener. We hope you've enjoyed Season 5 of RecLess as much as we have. We are wrapping up the rest of this season and putting together new episodes for Season 6. But as we wait, we are going to highlight some new episodes from a spin-off podcast, This Parks and Rec Life. As much as we believe in professional development of ourselves as Parks and Rec professionals, we also know that we couldn't do this without a supportive home life. We hope that you enjoy these conversations and that they spark meaningful conversations for you. These episodes will be released in our feed currently, but in the future will be released in their own podcast channel and on YouTube. We hope you enjoy them. Now on with the show.
My love is a place you can always call home.
Welcome to This Parks and Rec Life, where we explore the impact of a Parks and Recreation career on the home life of a professional and their family. My name is Hannah Mize, and today I am hosting our podcast. We're going to have various different guest hosts in here at different times, but today I am hosting solo, and I am joined by my very good friends, Josh and Katy Keller. Katy is the director of Parks and Rec in the town of Pittsboro, North Carolina. Katy, did I get that correct?
You did.
Fantastic. And of course, Josh is my very good friend and best bud spouse. We have together started the Real Housewives of NRPA, and we pal around quite a lot. So welcome, guys. I'm so glad that you guys are here.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, and I got kicked out of the Housewives, so that's fine. That's fine, guys. It's fine.
You have to be able to hang with
road
us.
there. So
Yeah, you gotta be able to play it cool. You weren't so cool.
It's not. It's in the details. It was in the details, and I felt like I was like, well, I'm not really a housewife. Like, but I want to hang. And you both were just so in sync together. Like, okay, we need your shirt back. Like,
Yep.
Cannot.
You relinquished. Give us the housewives card back. You have lost your privileges. Thank you very much. Well, I'm so glad that you guys are here today, and I am really excited to start this podcast where we are looking at the impact of a Parks and Recreation career on the family and the support system of a Parks and Rec professional. And we have kind of started talking about how the mental health, career longevity, just relationships in general come from a great portion of how well do you handle your home life. You know, it's one thing to be really, really great in your career, and then your home life is kind of falling apart behind the scenes, because this career asks a lot of Parks and Rec professionals. It's not a normal 8 to 5, 9 to 5. And how do we reconcile that? How do we have conversations, healthy conversations, and develop strategies so that we can go from not surviving as a Parks and Rec family, but actually to thrive as a Parks and Rec family? And so that's what we're here to talk about today. And I'm so glad that you guys are here with me to talk about it. So thanks for being here, guys.
yeah.
I love that y'all are doing this, because I think that this is something that a lot of people like. Being in a relationship to someone that's in our field is so hard. And this is often something that we never talk about, right? And that just kind of gets pushed under the rug a little bit. And it's so important, because especially given the uniqueness a little bit about our field, is that there's so many other people in relationships that are going through this, that it's important, and they may feel like, oh, I'm doing this alone, right? Of that. And I love that. But it makes me nervous too, on the flip side, as someone that's in the field and knowing how much it impacts Josh and the boys, that sometimes it's hard to hear. Not that it is, I would ever be embarrassed or anything like that, is that more than anything is the guilt that I carry on that, because I see firsthand of how it impacts them.
No, I totally get that.
There is so much. I'm so excited for y'all. I also know that, and proud and excited for y'all from the standpoint of, I think this is so necessary. I think that there are so many times that when you're in a relationship with someone that's from this field, everything that you just said is like, it's a little bit different, right? It's different in many different areas. And I know that this is not something that's talked about. And even in the thick of things of I can only imagine how many spouses we have each other on a standpoint of like we go to conferences and sometimes and we don't really talk about the relationship side of things, but there are also so many times to where, hey, like I'm not the only one that's feeling like this, right? And from the spouse's impact, I was saying a little bit earlier before we recorded was I was a little nervous of more than anything, not because that I'm worried about what we're going to say, right? Is more than anything is that I know that I myself carry a lot of guilt too sometimes because I know the impact that sometimes our field has on and our sons. So yeah, thank you all for doing this.
Absolutely.
I think it's so needed.
I'm thrilled that you guys are here. So as we're getting started, just like a quick synopsis, because I know you guys have been together for a long time. That could be a long story, but really quickly, how did you guys meet and what was your journey into Parks and Rec? And Josh, you can take that one if you want.
Okay, so we met in college. My brother and her sister went to college together, and then they were like, "Oh, I have a little brother and I have a little sister. We should hook them up." I guess the rest is history. Make that short. And then like got married. She was in the field before we got married, and kind of. I think it's taken, I don't know, until the last few years, after 14 years of marriage, like that we've kind of figured out how to navigate this whole, life and work. And, it's taken a lot to get there, but, we've finally kind of figured out how to do that. And, I would say communication is probably one of the biggest things and honesty, like, hey, like, I need you to do this. Like, take the kids to school today. Like, like I think honesty is probably one of the best things in communication. But yeah, like, that's kind of our story very shortly.
Absolutely. So when you had, how long were you in the field before you started having kids?
Oh, so it's funny. First of all, we didn't want children, so there was that. And yeah,
Don't
surprise.
let the boys listen to this.
Yeah, of that, like we're very open. We're like, hey, you guys are the best things that happened to us. We were so young. We got married. I was 23. I had just graduated.
Yeah.
Josh was
27.
27. And so I had just graduated college. I had only gotten a full-time job, been a full-time at Mecklenburg County for a month when we got married. Our 1 year anniversary, 5 days later, we had our first child. So like talk about not wanting to have kids. Like my mom was like, "Do y'all know how that works?" And I was like, "Well, I feel like it's a little late now to ask. Thanks, Mom."
You figured it out.
Yeah,
If you didn't know
well,
before, you figured it out.
yeah, surprise. And so it kind of was, we grew up together in so many different ways. And I think that that's a little bit interesting on our journey is that because we have met so early in life and because we had really started, we didn't live together prior to marriage. So like we were, bam, moved in together,
Starting life.
starting life
Both
together.
starting jobs. And then a year later, we have a newborn, and
Yeah.
we're still trying to figure out life.
How that
Yeah.
works. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So yeah,
Well,
that was fun.
yeah, well, and I think too, because everything was so new, and then you threw kids into it too. I think sometimes if you had already been established where these were your routines and then you had kids, that can present its own set of challenges too. So, I
Right.
mean, you just kind of
Yep.
ripped the Band-Aid off and did
Yeah, just
all of it
Yeah.
at one time,
Yeah.
which I
jump
think is
in.
cool.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Katy, what do you think is the hardest part of your spouse being married to you and the impact that your job has on them? What do you think is the hardest part of that?
Oh, I was hoping you were going to ask him first so I could have a rebuttal because I like to have the last word on everything. So I would say is one of the biggest things, and that I constantly have a guilt about, is that when I'm at work, in our field is like we are servicing other people. We are on a constant pleasing other people, right? And whether that's everyone's walking into my office so many different times, they are being pulled in different directions, or host, someone showed up or whatever, is you're always having to be on with the public and with the people, and from a leadership standpoint and things like that. By the time I get home, I am so tapped out. All I want to do is lay on the couch and read my book, right? And ignore everyone. And what I feel is so challenging is that coming home, and sometimes, especially with family, is coming home and you're having to jump into things. And sometimes I'm not great about that. And I can't communicate. It's taken so many years for me to understand if this is where I'm at, that I feel like sometimes they pay for that sacrifice, right? Of me giving to everyone else sometimes, and then by the time I get home, is I'm not able to be present because I'm still getting phone calls from work, or I'm still getting text messages. I'm addicted to my phone, right? All of these things that yeah.
Josh, do you agree with that? What do you think is the
Yeah,
hardest
I
part?
agree. And I get it. Like I understand, like, it is hard to be on constantly pleasing people all day. Like, that's why I enjoy working from home and not really talking to anyone. So, um, but it is like, I mean, we've, kind of started a new thing of like when she gets home, and when, kids get home, we put our phones away, and, after dinner, we start, doing other things like, hey, let's play a board game. Let's put a puzzle together. Like, like trying other things to like disconnect from our jobs and kind of connect with ourselves and our kids. So I think that's a it's working, like, to kind of engage a little bit more and have conversations. Having dinner together really is a big one, like, sitting around the dinner table and just having those conversations with our kids. Like, we play a fun game of like rose and thorn, like the rose, what was good happened today, and the thorn, what was kind of bad today, like we go around the table and just kind of talk. So I think that's been nice. But yeah, and it's hard from my perspective. Especially she works 40 minutes away. So I mean, like even when she gets off of work, it's still 40 minutes to get home. So it's not, hey, I'm off work, I'm at home. So with the kids being at their age they are, and the driving here and driving there, sometimes you feel like a taxi service. But that is a big one that when she does have to work late, it's like, all right, we worked late last night, can you take the kids to school this morning, right? Like, a little give, a little take here and there.
I love that. I love that. Has it always, well, whenever you guys do dinner, have you always been able to do dinner, or has it gotten easier now that the kids are older? They don't have to go to bed so early. You can kind of push dinner a little bit later. I know whenever
Yeah,
our kids were young, that was always really hard. Was like if you were trying to do a 7:30 or 8 o'clock bedtime in order for everybody to be up in the
right,
morning for school, and he's
Right.
coming in at 7:45, from
right.
work, it's like, okay, I have fed everybody, we have done everything. So like I was very intentional about when we did have family dinners,
Yeah.
making them very meaningful because they didn't happen all the time.
Yeah, it's
Like it was,
definitely a lot easier now that the boys are older. Um, and because we can like push dinner back a little bit, and and it also helps that I do work from home, so I love to cook. So dinner is ready. If she's walking in the door, like, all right, like, just let me know when you're gonna be home. That's when dinner will be ready. And then we go from there. But yeah,
Yeah, and if we're being real, like, even still, it doesn't happen every single night like we would like to, right? There's still, things going on. That's also, we at least try several nights a week to at least sit down together as a way to connect with each other. What I will also say is too, is like our kids are 12 and 10. The hardest years, like you were saying, Hannah, was before elementary. They were both in elementary school, is because like they are not able to be as independent And so then they're really relying on you extra. And especially as someone whose hours are really different and it's so hard to get in a routine sometimes, that that's kind of an extra layer. Since I think Hannah, you and I have talked about this, like we're in a sweet spot right now of like with the kids and their ages, and we're able to have a lot of that flexibility with them, and they're pretty self-sufficient. It was real. It takes a while to get to this point, especially.
Agreed, agreed. Shane and I have talked a lot about no matter how hard things are at any given time, just wait because it'll change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in
Yeah.
all honesty, whenever you move to the next spot, then you have to sit and talk about, okay, so now we're here and
Right.
what we were doing doesn't work anymore because that was for the
Completely
previous
throw it
time.
out the window.
Wild cards.
Right? So now how are we adjusting? What kind of new goals do we have? What's the new objective? What do you need from me? What do I need from you, in order to be able to make it work? So yeah, I what I hear you saying the most is that you're being very intentional. And I actually love that because I think a lot of times whenever we talk about this, one of the things that I see the most, and Josh will kind of circle back around to this. I mean, you and I met because, well, we were talking about this the other day, actually.
Yeah.
We met in New Orleans for the first time. And I think we just kind of were like, hey, how's it
Hey,
going?
Josh.
Yeah, we
Katie's
didn't
husband,
hang out really in New Orleans. And then in Indianapolis,
Mhm.
Katy, I don't know if you remember, you came along with us. I was telling Josh, we went to some high school or Hall of Fame something. I don't know what it was. Sports.
Yeah. Yay, sports.
Yay, sports. But we were in Indianapolis. We had a great time. We rode scooters all over the place. You remember
Yep.
that? I was afraid I was going to fall. Y'all talked me through that scary moment of my life. Thank you.
Someone did
And
fall.
It was me. I blame it on Jay.
so we had a great time in Indianapolis and really kind of made that connection, started to be friends. And then in Nashville, we really connected and have been like best buds since. But I think that connection really happened and we connected deeply really quickly over just the shared, I don't want to say trauma,
Yeah.
but just
It
Experiences.
can
the
be.
shared
Yeah.
experiences of
Yeah.
what it's like to try to schedule and put
Yeah.
all of this stuff together. It's not always the easiest thing in the world. With all of that, it's not all bad. What I was starting to go in that direction is at any given time you have to reframe it, right? Like it's a constant conversation where you're kind of like redoing things. So Josh, what is, as you've been in this for a little while now, what is your favorite part? What's the best perk of being married to somebody in the industry, being the support system?
I mean, first of all, conference, I would say that's the biggest perk. Yeah, when she's like, "Oh yeah, like I'm networking at these conferences." I was like, "Oh, okay. Sure." I was like, "Why is your bar tab so high?" Networking. I was like, "I gotta go check these things out for myself,
I get excited. Okay. Have lots of friends.
A lot of networking going on. But no, the like that I think conference is awesome, and it's essentially like a way for us to hang out, kind of like a little vacation, like I mean, so we can connect again, and it's yearly, and I feel like if your spouse is going to conference, try and tag along. It's a great time, and go experience what the Parks and Rec life is about because it's not like the show. It's not all, sunshine and teddy bears. I mean, it's hard for them, and I think that, um, I think it's just kind of coming back. It's really, really difficult for them to turn it on and turn it off. And I think that during conference, that's a little time where they can turn it off and have a good time. So I think being there is pretty cool. And back to your question, conference got me distracted because it's fun. Um, I think the events she has at her parks, us and the boys, and really enjoy going to them. I think that's a pretty big perk. Kind of get in on the fun events, and the music they have, and kind of the festivals and the parades and all the things that Parks and Rec people do. I think that's a really big perk.
It is a lot of fun. Circling back around to that with conference for myself too. And you and I have talked about this, Josh, is that I think one of the most important aspects of conference for me, I mean, it's so fun to see everybody and we have become just as close to our little family group as the professionals that are in our family group. Like
Yeah,
we are part of that group and I love that so much. But the other big thing that happened for me, and I know this happened for you because we've talked about it, is watching our favorite Parks and Rec person thrive. Like
yeah,
seeing, like it's one thing for them to come home and say, "Oh, I just ran a meeting and there were 300 people there and we talked about blah 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 blah." And then
yeah.
meanwhile, I'm here bathing all the kids and doing dinner and I'm like,
Like, great,
"Okay,
thanks.
yeah, it was really great. Okay, I hope you had a good time." But it's a whole nother thing to be able to go and experience that and
Hmm.
then to see what their success looks like. What does it
Yeah.
look like to see them present in front of a room of people or
Mhm.
to get up and get an award for somebody and to be recognized on a national level for things that, I mean, it's one thing to hear about it. It's a whole nother thing to see it and really be able to celebrate with them. And I think that is one of my favorite parts about
Yeah,
conference is walking behind Shane and he cannot make it 5 steps without talking to someone that has come up to say
exactly.
something. And I know Katy, it's like that with you too, because I've seen you at conference when we're there.
She loves to talk, so
Yeah,
a lot of times I just kind of keep walking. I'm like, she'll catch up eventually.
Oh,
absolutely.
oh. Well, and that's one thing is that like I originally, and I'll say this on the other hand of someone being in the professional, it's like one of the first time that he was coming, it's like I was nervous too. One, because like, okay, what is he gonna do? Like while I'm at conference and things like that, or like what of like on the flip side, excited for him to have a little peek into what we do because yes, it's so hard probably to as someone who suffers a lot from FOMO is seeing that hey in conferences as we're going out and we're networking and having a couple drinks and things like that. But for him to also see is that like yes, we're having a couple drinks, we're also having real conversations, right? Of things that are happening in our lives or challenges that we're doing, whether that's personal or whether that's professionally or whether that's something that's going on in our jobs, right? And so one of the comments that he had made was he was like, man, y'all really don't like, yes, you're having fun and catching up, but like you're also like living, breathing Parks and Recreation, right? Like you talk about it
Absolutely.
all the time. And I'm like, yeah, like this is kind of in our field. So like, and I love watching y'all bloom of hey, whenever we're coming to a conference of I don't have during the day is that like I love that y'all go on your adventures, right? Of like I was more or less nervous because I was like, oh, what is he gonna do while I'm at conference and things like that to a point to where there are some days where I'm like, well, I'm gonna go with them. Like that's
Most days you say that you have
yeah,
to
yeah.
say
I'm like,
no, go.
oh, that's
Because we have fun.
such
Yeah.
and
But
like, yeah.
but to your point too, and I started to say this and then got distracted a minute ago, but that's something that we have been able to connect on that Josh and I have while you guys are over there having your professional discussions. There's been a real connection with us too, as far as like, okay, how do you handle this?
Yeah.
Um, and to realize that just because the grass isn't always greener on the other side of the fence, and you're not alone if you are struggling with some of this stuff because
Yeah.
it can be hard. So that kind of leads into this next question. Katy, this will be for you. If you could go back to the very beginning of your career and you could kind of give some parameters or some guidelines around what this would possibly look like, what would you change or what would you have done a little bit differently? That you started off doing something and then you're like, oh, wow, what I should have done was blank.
Okay, so this is kind of a two-pointer for me. One is I got, I mean, two of the best advice right? Like the two different statements, kind of that one leads into the other one. One being, um, you're always going to move up, but you get to dictate when you move up, right? I came into the career and I'm very career driven and wanting of like, no, I'm going to be a director in the next 3 years. That's not realistic, right? Um, one of the advice that I got was if there was from someone that was very successful in our field, right? And she had said she's like the number one thing that if I could go back and do it all over again is spend more time with my kids. She was like, you're always going to get and spend more time with my family, right? You are always going to get, we are motivated. You are going to get to that next level. One thing you cannot do is come back in time, right? And so the first, I would say 5, 6 years, I really like killed myself of like and sacrificed a lot of time and was late to birthday parties and was late home and stayed extra hours I didn't even count, right? That they were just free hours of out there and things that like and then the guilt would eat me up inside, right? As a mom of like I feel like we tend to be guilty about everything. I'm not a good enough employee, I'm not a good enough wife, I'm not a good enough mom, aunt, sister, all of these things, right? um and so one thing that I've done a lot better, I would think, especially in this latest position too, and afterwards was establishing better boundaries and not feeling guilty about, no, my son has a baseball game tonight, I'm going to be there. Or like I want to take my kid to the doctor, not because that my husband can't. I want to take them to the doctor, and I'm not going to feel guilty about that, right? Of finding the little things that to establish boundaries, all boundaries look differently, right? And becoming who you are and being confident in who you are and where your expectations lie, which leads me into my second point. Shout out to Ross Johnson who um, gave me this one of don't ever change yourself to fit somebody else's mold. And that for me personally, especially was as someone with y'all are gonna find this shocking, a big personality and a strong personality, right? I had applied for a position that I felt like I was groomed for and that I had sacrificed so much for that, right? Years, and did not get it. And I was absolutely crushed. And in the thick of it, I did not realize how powerful this message was. And in hindsight, because you never do, right? It takes time to reflect and understand what that really was. But she mentioned that she was like, hey, like, you didn't fit their mold. You weren't what they were looking for. And let me tell you, you cannot change yourself because if you do change yourself, it's going to take years and years and years for you to figure out your way back and crawl your way back into something. Because the reality is if you change yourself, right, you're sacrificing what you believe in and you're changing yourself and becoming a person that you're not meant to be. And you're not going to be happy with that either. So, like, yes, this stinks. It's not personal. It's not you. It may feel personal, but you don't change yourself to fit somebody else's. And like, I have taken that advice and given it to every interview or every place that I've been to is that like, hey, if this isn't my room, if this isn't my box, I don't fit in this mold, that's okay. I'm going to go find something that does.
I really like that too, because I think you're absolutely right. This position, and honestly, any position will take as much as you give it.
Right.
So
Yep.
being able to establish some healthy boundaries, I think, is really important. Josh, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to someone else, to another spouse, as their Parks and Rec professional is entering the field?
I would say,
I'm interested to hear this. Patience.
yeah, well, that is a big one. Have like patience and honesty, right? Like Like don't hold things in, like, like, hey, like it's their job, yes, we get it, but hey, like be honest with, like, I need you to do this, right? I need, like, this is, like, have open conversations, like, right? Like, and I think we've just now kind of gotten there, but like, we sit down kind of every Sunday and be like, all right, what's your schedule look like this week? All right, this, and this, and this. I think, that would be, and obviously technology's come a long way, but Google Calendars are a great thing. But yeah, sit down and like see each other's schedules. Like, all right, what do you have that are hard no's that you can't do, right? Like what day? And I'll help out, and or she'll help out, and like, oh yeah, I can do that today. Like, so I would think going back and looking, like, open conversations and, establish schedules weekly. So I know what you like. If you have a board meeting, right? Like, it's in the calendar. Yep, there it is. I know that I got to do this afternoon, or, like, or whatever it may be. But I think those are two things that I would tell myself that, hey, have patience with her, because you know that her work ethic is, she's a go-getter. Have open conversations and establish that schedule weekly.
I agree with that so much. Yes. Shane and I used to do that as well. I mean, we still do.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't have quite, whenever all four kids were in
Oh, I
everything.
can only imagine.
I mean, we lived at the soccer field for the longest time.
Yeah.
There were a couple years in there that we were there every single night of the week. Somebody had soccer practice or volleyball practice or whatever.
Right.
I mean, it was a lot. Absolutely. Reconciling schedules and stuff is a big deal. Josh, there are also times whenever there's potentially like negative portions of the job, but there's also like really, really great moments too, right? Like whenever we see our spouses on stage or they're running a big event or they're being highlighted or celebrated for something. What do you like the most about watching your spouse perform in their position? Watching Katy perform.
That is a good question. I get a sense of pride. Like you kind of touched on it earlier, like when we do go to conference and we see them interact and we see them, present, it's like, man, like you kind of look around the room and there's like 300 people in there listening to my wife, give, you know, a talk on whatever it may be, like, and it's like, dang, they're like, and they're engaged, and seeing her up on the stage and in her element, like a huge sense of pride, in that aspect. And, and like, and even when she worked with, the TED Talks and Nile, like, I was like, man, that's super cool. Like, everybody I'd tell, like, yeah, my wife did, the TED Talks in DC, like, like she was, behind the scenes. Oh, really? Like, I mean, I brag on her, all the time, and I joke, and it's like she's the real life Leslie Knope. I mean, if you ever look at, she's got a binder, and they're all labeled, and she's got her tabs and everything. I was like, she is Leslie Knope 100%. And but yeah, just a sense of pride. Like, I cannot be more proud of her, and the accomplishments that she has gotten this far, and to only, be what, 36, 37 like years old. Like, it's kind of impressive, if you step back and, think about it.
I love that. And for those that don't know, shout out to our good friend Nile Bott, who did the TED Talks there in DC and is also with Next Practice Partners. So love that so much. Katy, this job, as we've talked about, can eat up the whole personal life, professional life, right? It'll take as much as you give it. And we can sometimes forget about our spouse's career, their professional life. I mean, Josh, you yourself are very successful and are doing great things in your job. You have a full-time career, you work and do all the things. So Katy, how do you show up for Josh? Like, what are you the most proud of, and how do you support him as he is building his own career?
Josh is always like, I don't know how he does it. He's able to shut his brain off, right? He's able to manage everything. right? All the time. Calendars, we joke because calendars are hard because I'm gonna send you a calendar invite, but I'm gonna have to edit it 3 more times. Just wait for those notifications before you approve it because it's going to be on the wrong day. There's something about a calendar to where I put it in of like I feel like it's right, but then I'm like, oh wait, that's not that day. He's like, you have a board meeting on a Sunday, and I was like, oh, that's not that day. Like,
Those
right?
details, those little
Yeah,
details.
yes. And like I'm seeing it on my phone, but it's not, it's just yeah. But the way that he has everything together and is still able to manage it, the way that he talks to our boys, right? Of like they have such a great connection. I'll say from a working standpoint too, is I learned so much from him on a like so he I say IT, but it's not IT. He's like, you've got to stop handing my information out because I'm not actually IT. I'm a web developer. And I was like, it's the same thing. He's like, no, that's not the same thing. It's not. And so what he's able to do is that there's sometimes if I'm working at home and I'll listen to him, if like he is great on the customer service aspect of it and walking through things as someone who is not always patient, right? Because my mind is 7 steps ahead of wherever I'm at right now, of like the way that he talks to people. And that has laid a huge foundation of like, even last year, he's really stepped up. He's able to manage everything at home and at work and still want to do more. And I get so proud of him. Even this last year, is like his boss has asked him to go to more conferences and represent the whole company of that. Like he's still able to, I will say, from kind of the original question too, is that, and you mentioned of like, hey, celebrating his wins, right? Of he has that one of the guilts is that the other person in your relationship, they aren't always, I mean, there have been times where he's wanted to look, but because a lot of things fall on his plate, right? Because I'm so far away and my schedule's so crazy. Sometimes that's of like has hindered a little bit of what you're able to do in progressing your career, right? Because like you are required to have that flexibility.
Yeah.
And being a little choosy and like I'm always I have so much pride in him for that. If he's like, oh no, I don't want that because I want to be, he's always had the boundaries, I guess is what I am trying to get at is like, and he's always so confident in his boundaries. He's like, I don't want to do that because I value picking up my kids every day and I value coaching them. I want to coach them in sports. I want to be able to watch their sports. And like, I am not sacrificing this. I don't want to sacrifice my flexibility in this position. I'll stay here and I'll take on more. Right. And like, that is so beautiful and such like just a, such a mindset that is mind-boggling to me because I'm always like, what's next? Like, let me do all these 5,000 different directions.
That kind of leads to another question. Josh, what do you do you feel like you've had to sacrifice anything? Do you feel like you've had to make sacrifices in your career to be supportive?
I don't think so. I mean, in I, my career, like, I mean, I've kind of like what Katie said, I've sacrificed for my children, like, like, because I do want to be their baseball coach or their football coach, and I do enjoy picking them up and taking them to school. So I don't think I've sacrificed my career because of her career. By no means. Like, I mean, and to be honest, like, I mean, with my career being working at home, it's kind of let her, you know, be free to move about, like to take this position in Pittsboro. I taught, which I work for a great company, and they were like, like you're working from home anyway, sure, you can move to Raleigh, that's great. Like, so I personally, I don't think I've really sacrificed anything for her career.
I love that. Josh, we've had this conversation, you and I offline several times, but everybody assumes that, like we're out and about, you're out somewhere with Katy, and you're meeting someone new, and someone says, "Oh, what does your wife do?" And you say she's in Parks and Rec, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, that's the most fun job in the whole entire world," and
Yeah.
then we sometimes yes, and then a lot of times not so much, right? There's a little underbelly to that sometimes. But when we periodically as spouses find ourselves in situations with
Mhm.
our parks professional where things are not going well, like
Yeah.
maybe there's been a decision that hasn't gone so well, like at the city council level, or at the administrative level, or maybe something has really hit social media and the community has kind of turned on something. We've been there for all of
Hmm.
those things where your spouse is the target for things that are just hard. It's not
Yeah.
easy to hear all those things. Um, how have you provided support whenever things have gone badly? Like to know when to give feedback versus to know when to just to listen, to just be
Yeah.
their safe
And that's
space.
that is a big thing, right? Like, I mean, you can kind of, and we've been married for 14 years. I can kind of look at her and tell if she wants me to give feedback or if I'm just absorbing all of her anger and hate at the moment. Um, and honestly, like, I mean, and when she comes in, I can see her in a mood. I can say, "Hey, is this a time where you just want me to listen, or do you want my opinion?" And she'll be honest, like, "Nope, I just need you to listen, and I'm gonna get this off my chest." And after that, it's done. I'm like, "All right, cool, hit me, like throw it all at me." And then if she does, I will provide my opinion, and we all have our own opinions, but like, that is again, it kind of goes back to the open conversations, like, like, hey, do you want my advice or do you just want me to listen, right? Like, because I'm happy either way. Um, but yeah, I mean, we've all been there, and I sometimes, like, like, I'm open to being her proverbial punching bag, right? Like, just take everything that you had and just throw it at me. I'll handle it, like, and just, hey, just to get it off your chest, right? You can yell at me but if you do want that feedback that I have, and I'm, open to it, and just tell me, that's my take on it. I don't know if you have a different take on that, but
No,
No,
and I think it's so funny of that, like, because as someone who's just naturally a fixer, he's really good at that. If he's kind of, because sometimes our worlds do collide a little bit more on the software side because we have so many different software opportunities, and sometimes I struggle whenever he tells me about some of the frustrations that he has. He was like, "Well, why would they do that?" And I'm like, I can kind of see how and like, whereas he's like, again, it goes back to because I'm a natural fixer, we've had to work on too, is that like I need him to tell me of that, like, hey, I just want to vent. I don't want. And so then I'm like, okay, I'll take it. Like, give me what you got. I'll take it, and I will try my hardest not to provide feedback or commentary, or try and fix it, of that. Like, I will say is, and one thing that I love is, especially being a female in a very male dominant field, right? Is he has always been my biggest supporter on things. He has always, even from a standpoint to where I have, and again, we've been married 14 years, right? He is the first person to say of like, I don't like that, right? Or I don't, whether that's, or maybe you should have said something a little bit differently, right? Having like a strong personality of like trying, even the feedback that he has sometimes, even if I don't like it right then, I understand it, right? I'll process it a little bit and coming forward, and saying of like, yeah, I probably could have handled that in all aspects, not just in the workplace, but also at home too, of um because when we're at home, because going back to pleasing everyone all day, every day. By the time we get home, it's like we're not as tactful sometimes, right? Of like, I've been filtering what I've had to say all day and whether it's coaching or whether it's, managing people or whether it's negotiating and compromising all the time. So by the time I get home, it's like sometimes I got to work on just not being as honest, right, or direct. Even though I'm originally an honest and direct person, so like some of that filter a little bit, but he is like the biggest champion that like I have felt so safe and encouraged to be myself in that area, and like having someone that's like, no, don't change. You going back to like finding your space. And he's like, no, no, you shouldn't have to sacrifice. And like, I'm always so proud of him for he does not care, right? It's something that I envy so much. He's like, no, I am who I am. And like, that's not going to change. And I'm like, oh my God, I love that. Like, yes. And like, as someone who is a people pleaser and like, he's like, why do you, I lean on him for that too. And you mentioned showing up in different spaces and things like that. I have learned too over the years of that, because we work and we want to give everything everyone else. It's so refreshing for him to be like, no, you shouldn't care. Like, you shouldn't do that. And showing up for him in other spaces to where of like, okay, if this means something very valuable to you, I'm going to try and move heaven and earth to rearrange my schedule and make sure of like, he doesn't ask for a lot, right? He has a remote, he does all the things of like, if he wants to go to conferences, I'm blocking that off in my calendar the whole week or wherever I need to make sure that I have this handled, and like you don't have to worry about a thing while you're gone. Like I do that, and he just is so like, I learn from him all the time of like the way that he navigates things, the way that he says things and stuff like that of like, it's awesome. He's
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you.
Aw,
Copy.
see, I love it. I love that y'all are saying things to each other that you may not have said on this
Yeah.
afternoon. So
Yeah. No.
this great
Yeah.
day. Well, I have taken up plenty of your time today, and I just appreciate you guys sitting down and visiting with this so much. I think that my number one goal with this whole little endeavor and project is that if we can spark conversation with others and to just normalize that if you are a spouse that is, or not even a spouse, a loved one, a support system, or whatever, that you are going through this with your Parks and Rec professional. This is not something that we normalize and talk about all the time.
Yeah.
With our professional development, I say I'm not in the field. With y'all's professional development, you do talk so much about developing what you're doing with your career, but I honestly think that if you don't have a strong support system at home, that it's really hard to have longevity in this career, because
I agree.
you have to be in the headspace that you can do it, and if your home life is crumbling and falling apart, it's not so easy to keep on going. So
And plenty of professionals that have quit the field just because it was too much. I mean, it's a lot. Like it's a heavy job. And when people think, oh, it's Parks and Rec, like you said earlier, it's fun, right? It's a heavy hitting job. It asks a lot out of everyone.
and it will take everything. If you let
Yes.
it will take everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think too, Hannah, what you were saying is that like, hey, talk to other people. Like if I could also go back and say one thing is that like bring Josh, show him into our life in Parks and Recreation a little bit. Because after that, once he saw a little peek into it, and once he made friends with you of like, hey, I'm not alone, right? Hey, like these are frustrations, or hey, these are like, just talk about it of like, talk about it with other people, and kind of, ask questions, that type of stuff of like, I love that this is
It's like
something that y'all are doing.
Parks and Rec therapy,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think once again, I said it earlier, but I think it could not be more true. We want our Parks and Rec families to not just survive this process,
Right.
but to actually thrive in this
Yeah.
process. And
Yeah,
it's
of course.
definitely a possibility. It's definitely something that you can do. And it does take intentionality, and it
Right.
takes communication, and it takes being able to have flexibility and
Mhm.
talk to each other. I can't
Yeah.
stress that enough. So
And one thing I'll say, one last thing is that find out what works for you. What works for Josh and I is it may not work for you and Shane, or it may not work for somebody else. I think the biggest thing that I learned in one of our conferences is that like it was like a work-life balance thing, which like what does that even mean? Of is that whether that's for me is like I have visual cues help me visually putting my phone in the basket helps, right? Of like helps me shut it off. Find what works for your relationship. And I think that that's the biggest thing that I feel like is not expressed a lot is like everyone wants a tip or trick, but what works for somebody else may not work for you. Everything looks differently, but just find that intentionality of like what works for us is
I
key.
love that.
Communication.
Josh? Oh, go ahead. Say that again.
No, just communication and honesty. You know, like being open. That's
Which is hard.
yeah.
True. Very true. Well, with that, guys, thanks so much for joining
Thank you.
today. It was great to visit with you. And until next time, we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
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 My love is a place you can always call